So if any of you guys follow me on TikTok, you will have noticed my new addition to my camera gear that I've been thinking about for a while. And what I'm gonna start off before I show you guys what I'm gonna say, it doesn't matter what other people decided to use for their gear. The point is what works for you and your purposes, because I know there will be people telling me, well, you should have done this. Well, you should have bought this because I'm happy with this. I don't care. That's great for you, but everybody's needs and everybody's preferences are different, and that's okay. So let's keep that in mind. My new camera here is not a brand I've used before, which is probably why people will be really frustrated with me for doing this, but I have my reasons. I got the Sony A7C. This is the smallest mirrorless camera in existence right now. I also got just a cheap 50mm Sony 1.8 lens, not the best lens, and I know that. This was just kind of to start out. I wanted to make sure I really loved the camera using it and using it on some of my photo shoots, as well as editing the photos together from both to make sure that I liked how the colors go with my Canon, because I do still use my R6 as my main camera. My R6 with the 85-1.2 is pretty much all I use most of the time. But like for weddings, when I want to have a second camera body on me, my 5D4 is really slow and it doesn't always hit focus. And I also needed to make sure I had a third camera so that if I have someone as a second shooter, they have one of my cameras to use, that everything's gonna look look nice together. So my thought is they're gonna use the 5D4. And my second body camera is gonna be the Sony A7C. I'm also planning on getting a couple other lenses for this, but this is also, the point is, this is also gonna be my travel camera, aside from my Fuji, but if I want like nicer portraits on travels, because I don't want to take my R6 with me. One, it's big, but also I don't want to be worried about my professional gear while I'm on vacation. And all my Canon lenses are part of my business too, so I don't want to have to worry about any of that. On top of that, I wanted a lighter, easier, compact system to carry with me. Canon does not make a small enough one, because I had the RP because I know someone's going to mention it. I did not like it. I sold it for a reason. I hated it. It was slow and clunky and it missed focus all the time. I also didn't want the R that's bigger. This is still smaller because I'm going to show you right now. You're not going to believe this unless you guys have seen one in person as well. This is my Fuji X100V and this is the Sony. They are like so similar in size and weight. Right now, this is just barely slightly heavier than this. So I barely noticed I even had this on yesterday when I did an engagement shoot. I mostly shot, again, with the R6 and the 85 just because that's my preference. I love how that looks. But I did use this for some, and I went home and edited them. I had watched videos from both Julia Trotti and Mitch Lally, I think was the other one, and they compared the colors. As long as you adjust your white balance and your color settings, you can make them look like the exact same raw files that came out of both cameras. Or, you know, my editing looks so consistent, I had to look and go, which one was taken on the Sony? The only main difference is obviously the lenses, because this is just a 50-1.8, it's okay. Whereas this thing that I used for most of the photo shoot is my 85-1.2. Obviously the depth of field is going to look very different in the photos and the quality is going to look very different. I would hope so for as much as this cost. But I do not want to ever have to take that on a trip. I did it once and I didn't like it. But that led me to deciding on the Sony. I really debated, mostly because of the editing to make it all consistent, but that's not even an issue. They look great. I'm going to try and insert some photos like as we go here, because I think that'll kind of show you guys they really, like I said, other than the depth of field, it was hard to tell which photos were taken on which camera because I can edit them similarly. So that's not even an issue. Yes, it means I have to get more lenses for this, but I don't mind. And I know other people are also going to say we should have done the Canon M50. Again, I didn't want that one. I wanted a small full frame, not the RP because I hated it. I wanted smaller than that. That's why I got this. May not be your choice or your preference or what you would have done, but it's what I did and it's what I'm happy with. So this is what I'm using. So basically, like I said, I'm going to be using my R6 and this as my two on the harness. And then my 5D4 will just be a backup if I have a second shooter with me. And then I still just take my Fuji everywhere with me. But this is going to be also the travel camera that's going to be very easy and convenient to take with me and be able to carry in my purse, and also not worried about what's happening to my professional gear, because while this is still my professional gear, it's not my main camera. And if something were to happen to this, I still have the 5D4 as a backup. So hopefully that makes sense. But now I'm going to try and insert the photos that I took yesterday from both, and you guys can judge for yourself, but I think they still, no matter which camera I used, they look great. Actually, I also totally forgot to say, the main complaint I have about this that everybody else did too is that it has the old Sony menu system, which is terrible. I still don't know where anything is and I still can't find anything, but I'm trying. And also, like, you know, it doesn't have the front scroll wheel, so it has one button is already set to aperture, one is set to shutter, and then there's a little button here, I don't know if you'll be able to see it, where you can adjust the ISO. Don't focus on my face, there we go. So that's kind of how I'm doing it, but basically, like, I was out in the sun yesterday, my ISO stayed the same. My aperture, I like to be wide open, stayed the same. I pretty much only adjusted the shutter speed, so that worked. And I also finally figured out, one, that my camera needed the firmware update, so I only just did that today. But also, I figured out how to set the touch shutter, which I like using. I really honestly thought I didn't have that at first. But the other thing, obviously, this lens is extremely cheap, and it's not the best lens, and I know that. But it was what I could afford to go on the camera at the moment, and it's just a cheap nifty 50. So I'm probably just going to get an 85. I don't know that I would need anything else, honestly, for this, because 50 and 85 are what I use for pretty much everything. So now I'm going to show you some photos.